Number 1. FN FAL, the right arm of the free world. 1953, Herstal, Belgium. Dieudonné Save, who'd worked alongside John Browning himself, unveiled the FN FAL. The Fusil Automatique Léger was supposed to be NATO's answer to the Soviet HK416. 90 countries lined up to adopt it. Britain called it the L1A1. Australia, Canada, Argentina, West Germany, everyone wanted one. Over 2 million rifles manufactured. The right arm of the free world, they called it. For 30 years, it dominated battlefields everywhere. British paratroopers carried L1A1s through Malaysian jungles. Australian soldiers used them in Vietnam's rice paddies. The rifle worked in Arctic Norway and scorching African deserts. It was reliable, accurate to 600 meters, and built like a tank. Commonwealth soldiers would have fought anyone who insulted their FAL.
But here's the problem nobody wanted to admit. The 7.62 by 51mm NATO cartridge was too damn powerful. The Americans had forced this cartridge on everyone, insisting NATO needed stopping power. On full automatic, the FAL became a bucking bronco. After the second round, you were shooting at clouds. Watch an Australian soldier in Vietnam try to control full auto fire. Impossible. Quietly, almost embarrassingly, most countries converted their FALs to semi-automatic only. That selector switch to full auto? Just decoration. In Vietnam, Australian troops watched American M16s spit controllable bursts while their beloved FALs climbed skyward. The rifle weighed over 12 pounds loaded. Soldiers exhausted themselves carrying it through jungles. And those 20-round magazines? Enemies with AK-47s had 30 rounds. Do the math. By 1980, NATO finally admitted what everyone knew. The Americans had been catastrophically wrong about cartridge selection. The FAL wasn't the problem. Its ammunition was. The Germans, who'd learned about intermediate cartridges in World War II, had already made a different choice. Number 2. Heckler & Koch G3, the budget beast. 1959. Oberndorf, Germany. West Germany had a problem. They wanted the FAL, but Belgium refused to license production. So Germany did what Germans do, found an engineering solution. Spanish exiles who designed the Set-Me rifle were living in Germany. Heckler & Koch bought the design, tweaked it, and created the G3. Here's the genius. Roller-delayed blowback instead of expensive gas pistons. Stamped steel instead of milled forgings. The G3 cost half what an FAL cost to manufacture. Suddenly, countries with limited budgets could afford a modern rifle. 7 million G3s were produced. Portugal, Greece, Turkey, Pakistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, 40 countries total. The G3 democratized military modernization, and it worked. German soldiers carried it from 1959 to 1997, nearly 4 decades of service. The rifle functioned in freezing Norwegian winters and tropical African heat. It was accurate, reliable, maintainable. For nations that couldn't afford the FAL's premium price tag, the G3 was salvation.
But there was a price for that economy. The roller-delayed blowback system was mechanically violent. When the G3 fired, the bolt slammed backwards with brutal force. The fluted chamber, designed to help extraction, actually scraped and deformed brass casings. Spent shells ejected so forcefully they'd land 15 feet away, useless for reloading. Soldiers standing next to you could get hit by your brass. Worse, the recoil felt sharper than the FALs, even though they fired the same ammunition. German soldiers in Afghanistan decades later would report punishing recoil during extended firefights. The mechanical advantage of the roller system translated directly into your shoulder, and like the FAL, full auto accuracy was a joke. The rifle still fired that too powerful 7.62 by 51mm NATO round.
By the 1990s, Germany was desperate to replace it, but budget constraints meant the G3 stayed in service long after it should have been retired. It remained because it was cheap, not because it was good. Meanwhile, 8,000 miles away, American soldiers were dying because of a rifle that should have been perfect. Number 3. M16, the rifle that killed its own soldiers. 1967, the Pentagon. Defense Secretary Robert McNamara forced the M16A1 into service despite Army resistance. Eugene Stoner's AR-15 design was genuinely revolutionary. The 5.56 by 45mm cartridge was smaller, lighter, faster. The rifle weighed 6.5 pounds loaded versus the M14's 11 pounds. Aluminum receivers, plastic furniture, 30-round magazines. Soldiers could carry 300 rounds instead of 120. It looked like a toy. It would become the most produced 5.56mm rifle in history, over 8 million manufactured.
When it worked, The M16 was devastatingly effective. That lightweight design meant soldiers didn't exhaust themselves. The high-velocity 5.56mm round created horrific wounds despite its small size. And for the first time in military history, controllable automatic fire was actually possible. The rifle was brilliant. 15 NATO countries eventually adopted variants. The basic design proved endlessly adaptable, but in Vietnam, the M16 did something unforgivable. It killed American soldiers. The rifle jammed, constantly, catastrophically, in the middle of firefights. Marines would pull triggers and nothing would happen. They'd rack charging handles and bolts wouldn't move. Soldiers died trying to clear jammed rifles while taking fire. The direct gas impingement system pumped carbon directly into the bolt carrier. In Vietnam's humidity, with no chrome-lined chamber, with the wrong powder in the ammunition, the M16 became a single-shot rifle, if you were lucky.
Mothers received letters.
Dear Mrs. Johnson, this weapon killed your son. Congressional hearings in 1967 revealed the horror. Soldiers testified that they'd been issued no cleaning kits. They'd been told the rifle was self-cleaning. The ammunition had the wrong powder that increased fouling, no chrome lining in the chamber. It was a perfect storm of incompetence and cost-cutting. Even after they fixed everything, chrome-lined chambers, cleaning kits, proper ammunition, the damage to trust was permanent. Special Forces units refused to carry M16s for years afterward. They'd rather use captured HK416s. That's how bad the reputation became. First impressions in warfare are written in blood, and the M16's first impression was written in American blood. Belgium had been watching this disaster unfold very carefully. Number 4. FN FNC, the rifle nobody remembers. 1979, Herstal, Belgium. FN looked at the M16's problems and designed the FNC as the solution. Take the reliability of an AK-47's long-stroke gas piston system. Combine it with 5.56mm NATO chambering. Use stamped steel and polymer to keep costs down. Add a 4-position selector, safe, semi-auto, 3-round burst, full auto. Make it accept standard NATO magazines so any country could adopt it. Indonesia's Air Force bought 10,000 rifles immediately. Sweden adopted it in 1986 as the AK-5. Belgium finally adopted it in 1989 to replace the legendary FAL. Indonesia licensed production as the Pindad SS-1 for their entire military, and the FNC actually worked perfectly. No major reliability issues, no design flaws, no scandals. The gas piston system avoided M16 fouling. The rifle was accurate, maintainable, reliable in any environment. Sweden still uses it today, nearly 40 years later. It just worked. So why doesn't anyone know about it? Because the FNC arrived late to a party that was already over. By 1979, most NATO countries had already chosen their 5.56mm rifle. The countries that hadn't were waiting to see if the M16's problems would be fixed. The FNC's skeletal folding stock was uncomfortable. It weighed more than the M16, and it offered nothing revolutionary enough to make countries switch. Belgium itself only bought 13,000 rifles, a tiny fraction compared to the millions of FALs they'd produced. Export success was minimal. The rifle worked perfectly, but perfect isn't always enough. It was the Volvo of assault rifles. Reliable, safe, completely boring. By the 1990s, the M16's reliability had been fixed. The FNC's main selling point, it actually works, became irrelevant. Belgium replaced it with the SCAR in 2011. The FNC became the forgotten NATO rifle, good enough to keep in service, not special enough for anyone to remember it existed. It's the most successful rifle you've never heard of. Italy, watching everyone else's mistakes pile up, decided to play it safe. Number 5. Beretta AR-70-90, obsolete the day it was adopted. 1990. Gardone Val Trompia, Italy. Beretta won Italian military trials with the AR-70-90. They'd studied every rifle that came before, every failure, every flaw. The AR-70-90 would avoid all of them through careful, conservative engineering. Long-stroke gas piston for absolute reliability. Standard NATO magazines for compatibility. Steel construction throughout for durability. Accepts the M203 grenade launch, 3-round burst, and full auto. Detachable carrying handle. The rifle was built to survive the apocalypse. Italy procured 79,587 rifles. It was thoroughly studied, thoroughly tested, thoroughly conventional. And it worked. For 24 years, Italian forces carried AR-70-90s in Somalia, Iraq, and Afghanistan without major problems. That heavy steel construction withstood abuse that would have destroyed lighter rifles. Desert heat didn't affect it. Arctic cold didn't stop it. Soldiers appreciated its solid, tank-like feel. The rifle never failed mechanically. It was everything the early M16 wasn't: heavy, durable, absolutely reliable under any conditions you could imagine. There was just one problem. By 1990 standards, it was already outdated the day it was adopted. The steel construction that made it reliable made it heavy, 9 pounds unloaded. In an era when rifles were getting lighter, the AR-7090 went the opposite direction. No rails for mounting accessories, fixed carry handle, no modularity, limited optics options. It was a 1980s rifle competing in a 1990s world.
Fast forward to Afghanistan. Italian soldiers watched American troops with M4 carbines equipped with holographic sights, infrared lasers, vertical foregrips, and suppressors. The AR-7090 couldn't mount any of that without expensive custom gunsmithing. The rifle worked perfectly, but it belonged to a different era of warfare. In 2008, Italy began replacing it with the modular Beretta ARX-160. Not because the AR-7090 failed, because the battlefield had moved on without it. Reliability alone wasn't enough anymore. You needed adaptability. You needed modularity. You needed to accept that warfare changes faster than procurement cycles. The AR-7090 proved that perfecting yesterday's technology just means you're perfectly irrelevant today. The British, meanwhile, had pursued the most radical design yet, and they'd created the worst rifle in NATO history. Number 6. L85/SA80, Britain's national embarrassment. 1985, Enfield, England. The Royal Small Arms Factory, the legendary RSAF Enfield, designed Britain's next rifle, the L85A1, the SA80. It was revolutionary. Bullpup configuration, action behind the trigger, allowing a full-length 20-inch barrel in a rifle just 30 inches long. Every rifle came standard with a 4x24 SUSAT optical sight. Every British soldier would be an equipped marksman. On paper, it was the most advanced infantry rifle in NATO. Compact for vehicle crews and paratroopers, full rifle ballistics, integrated optics. Over 350,000 manufactured. The future of infantry combat. British soldiers had a different name for it, the civil servant, because it didn't work. The bullpup concept was brilliant. Short length was perfect for Northern Ireland's urban combat. Vehicle crews loved the compact dimensions. The rifle looked impressively futuristic in promotional videos. Then soldiers actually used it in combat, and everything fell apart. Magazines would fall out during normal movement. Not sometimes, regularly. The rifle jammed constantly in any environment that wasn't a climate-controlled armory. Plastic parts broke in heat. Metal parts corroded in humidity. In Sierra Leone in 2000, British Pathfinders deployed, and their L85A1's safety catches completely failed. The rifles became inoperable during active combat operations. The L85A1 was so catastrophically unreliable that the SAS and SBS, Britain's premier special forces, refused to carry it. They used American M16s instead. Think about that. British Special Forces rejected a British rifle for an American rifle during the height of British military pride. It gets worse. The L85A1 couldn't be fired left-handed at all. Hot brass would eject directly into a left-handed shooter's face. About 10% of the population is left-handed. Britain just told them, figure it out, or switch hands. By 2002, the situation was so dire that Britain did something almost unprecedented. They paid Heckler & Koch, a German company, millions of pounds to essentially redesign the entire rifle. 200,000 L85A1s required complete rebuilding into the L85A2. New bolt carrier, new firing pin, new extractor, new gas system, new everything. The L85A2 actually works now, but the original L85A1 remains perhaps the worst service rifle ever adopted by a major military in modern history. It was a national embarrassment, evidence that institutional knowledge at RSAF Enfield had been lost, proof that you can't just design a bullpup rifle without understanding why bullpup rifles are difficult. France had been watching NATO's failures with quiet superiority. They had their own bullpup, and it was better, mostly. Number 7. FAMAS, the French bugle that couldn't speak. NATO, 1978. Saint-Étienne, France. Manufacturer d'Armes de Saint-Étienne created the FAMAS. France looked at NATO's rifle chaos and said, we'll do it ourselves. The French way. Another bullpup, but radically different from anything else. Lever-delayed blowback instead of gas operation. Simpler, lighter, fewer parts.
It fired at 1,100 rounds per minute, one of the fastest service rifles ever fielded, just 29 inches long. Integrated bipod. You could switch the ejection port from right to left in seconds. French troops loved it. They nicknamed it Le Clairon, the bugle. 400,000 produced.
And the FAMAS performed brilliantly in French service. Gulf War, Afghanistan, African peacekeeping operations across the Sahel. That insanely high rate of fire meant 3-round bursts were devastatingly effective. The compact size was perfect for vehicle crews, paratroopers, alpine troops. For French military operations, with French logistics, the FAMAS was outstanding. There was just one very French problem. The FAMAS was designed specifically for French steel-cased ammunition, not NATO standard brass-cased ammunition. Using standard NATO ammunition in a FAMAS caused extraction failures, sometimes case ruptures. The lever-delayed blowback system was extraordinarily ammunition-sensitive. You couldn't just grab NATO ammunition from Allied forces and use it reliably. This wasn't an oversight. It was intentional French independence. France wanted a rifle optimized for French ammunition, French tactics, French operations. NATO standardization be damned. But in 2002, the FAMAS factory closed. France could no longer produce the rifle or its special ammunition. The FAMAS G2 variant accepted NATO magazines and ammunition, but by then it was too late. Without domestic production capability, France couldn't repair rifles or replace components. The entire system became logistically unsustainable. In 2016, France made a decision that must have hurt. They selected the German HK416 to replace the FAMAS. The French solution was replaced by a German rifle. After decades of French military independence, they bought German. The irony was noted by everyone except the French, who pretended this had been the plan all along. Switzerland, neutral as always, had been quietly perfecting something that nobody could afford. Number 8. SIG SG550, when perfection costs too much. 1990, Neuhausen, Switzerland. Swiss Arms unveiled the SIG SG550, designated STGW-90 in Swiss military service. Swiss neutrality meant Swiss perfectionism without budget constraints. This wasn't a rifle designed to a price point. This was a rifle designed to a standard. Absolute perfection. Translucent polymer magazines so you could see your ammunition count. Folding skeleton stock. Integrated bipod. Tritium night sights for every rifle. Diopter adjustable out to 400 meters. Every single SG550 was individually test-fired at 300 meters before acceptance. If it didn't meet Swiss accuracy standards, it was rejected. Over 600,000 produced for the Swiss military. The SG550 is widely considered the most accurate standard-issue service rifle ever adopted by any military, period. Swiss manufacturing standards meant perfect quality control. The long-stroke gas piston system proved absolutely reliable in any environment. Export versions were adopted by Chile, France's elite units, Spain's special forces, Indonesia, Poland's Grom commandos. Special forces worldwide requested the SG550 when you absolutely, positively needed a rifle that would work perfectly every time. You bought Swiss. So why didn't everyone buy the SG550? Money. Lots and lots of money. The SG550 was expensive to manufacture, expensive to maintain, expensive to train with. Most countries couldn't afford it. The rifle's price point made mass adoption economically impossible for normal defense budgets. Switzerland could afford to equip its citizen militia with the finest rifle in the world. They're Switzerland. They have that kind of money. Almost nobody else could. The SG550 remained a niche weapon for wealthy militaries and elite special forces units only. It demonstrated what was technically achievable. It proved that you could build a nearly perfect service rifle if you ignored cost constraints. But that's the problem. You can't ignore cost constraints. Not when you need to equip hundreds of thousands of soldiers. The SG550 was impressive. It was also economically irrelevant to most nations. Swiss perfection doesn't scale. Excellence is meaningless if you can't afford to manufacture it in quantity. It's the rifle everyone wanted and nobody could buy. Germany, desperate to replace the G3 after 4 decades, tried a revolutionary approach: plastic. Number 9. HK416, the rifle that melted in Afghanistan. 1997, Oberndorf, Germany. Heckler & Koch won the contract to replace Germany's aging G3. The G36 was revolutionary. Extensive polymer construction throughout, receivers, furniture, everything possible made of lightweight polymer. The rifle weighed just 7.9 pounds unloaded. In an era when rifles were getting heavier with accessories,
The G36 went radically light. Every G36 came with an integrated dual optical sight, a 3x24 scope with a red dot sight mounted on top. Every German soldier became an equipped marksman with magnified optics, short-stroke gas piston, translucent magazines, modular design. 40 countries adopted it. Germany finally had their 5.56mm rifle, and it seemed perfect.
For 15 years, the G36 performed flawlessly. Balkans peacekeeping operations. Initial Afghanistan deployments in moderate climates. The lightweight design meant soldiers could carry more ammunition without fatigue. The integrated optics meant better accuracy than iron sights. Field stripping was simple. Maintenance was easy. Germany appeared to have finally perfected the modern infantry rifle. Then German troops deployed to Afghanistan's Helmand province. Summer temperatures, 120 degrees Fahrenheit, heavy contact with Taliban fighters, sustained automatic fire. The G36's accuracy fell apart. Completely. Soldiers reported 40-inch groups at just 110 yards. That's not a typo. 40 inches. At 110 yards. With a service rifle that was supposed to be accurate to 600 meters. The polymer construction, the revolutionary weight-saving feature, was warping under heat and sustained fire. German media exploded. Parliamentary investigations followed. The scandal went international. Germany's defense minister faced calls for resignation. The Bundeswehr's reputation took a massive hit. Here's what happened. The extensive polymer construction couldn't handle sustained automatic fire in extreme temperatures. The barrel heated up. The polymer receiver heated up. They expanded at different thermal rates. The barrel and receiver relationship changed dimensionally. Accuracy disappeared exactly when soldiers needed it most, during heavy firefights. The G36's revolutionary polymer design was its fatal flaw. The very thing that made it lightweight and modern made it unreliable in real combat conditions. Germany launched emergency procurement for a replacement. In 2021, they selected the HK416. The G36 will be completely phased out by 2026. Millions of euros spent on a rifle that lasted barely 2 decades. Polymer revolution became polymer humiliation, and the replacement rifle represented the industry admitting something embarrassing. Number 10. HK416. 70 years to return to Stoner. 2004. Oberndorf, Germany. Heckler & Koch created the HK416. Here's what it is. An AR-15 derivative. Eugene Stoner's 1950s design. With one critical change, they replaced the direct gas impingement system with a short-stroke gas piston. That's it. That's the innovation. After 70 years of rifle development, we came back to Stoner's original design and changed the gas system. But it worked. Navy SEAL Team 6 used HK416s to kill Osama bin Laden in 2011. Norway adopted it in 2008. France selected it to replace the FAMAS in 2016. Germany chose it to replace the G36 in 2021. The U.S. Marine Corps adopted it as the M27 infantry automatic rifle. The HK416 solved the M16's fouling problems while keeping the lightweight modular design. The gas piston system meant cleaner operation. You could run thousands of rounds without the bolt carrier getting caked in carbon. Multiple barrel lengths offered mission flexibility. It accepted all M16 accessories and magazines. Decades of M16 aftermarket development worked perfectly. Combat-proven reliability finally met true modularity. But here's the uncomfortable truth the HK416 represents. After 70 years of rifle development, bullpups, roller-delayed blowback, lever-delayed systems, polymer construction, revolutionary designs, we came full circle back to Eugene Stoner's 1950s AR-15 with a gas piston added. Think about that. The FAL, G3, SA-80, FAMAS, G36, SCAR, all that innovation, all those billions spent on development, and we ended up back where we started in 1956, just with a different gas system. The HK416 is excellent. Don't misunderstand. It's probably the best general-purpose 5.56mm rifle currently available. But it represents incremental improvement, not revolution. It's admission that the perfect rifle doesn't exist, just progressively better compromises based on 60-year-old ideas. The search for the perfect rifle ended with sophisticated refinement of old concepts. Innovation had circled completely back to its starting point. But one company believed that true modularity, real modularity, could finally solve everything. Number 11. FN SCAR L. When modularity meets reality. 2009. Herstal, Belgium. FN Herstal won the U.S. Special Operations Command competition with the SCAR L.
Special Operations Forces Combat Assault Rifle, Light.
This was it, the truly modular rifle everyone had been promising for decades. You could change barrels without tools, swap between 10-inch close quarters, 14-inch standard, and 18-inch designated marksman configurations, switch calibers, configure ejection for left or right-handed shooters, the stock folded and telescoped. Free-floating barrel maintained accuracy. Gas regulator included a suppressor setting. Belgium adopted it in 2011 to replace the FNC. 20 countries purchased it. The SCAR seemed to finally deliver on every promise ever made about modular rifle systems. And the modularity was real, not marketing, actually real. Special forces could reconfigure rifles for different missions in minutes. Need a close-quarters rifle for building clearing? 10-inch barrel. Need a designated marksman rifle? 18-inch barrel. Same rifle. Multiple Picatinny rails accepted every accessory ever invented. The SCAR was the Swiss Army knife of rifle. Over 20 countries adopted it. Mission success rates with the SCAR were excellent. The rifle worked. So why did U.S. Special Operations Command eventually drop it? Cost and weight, and an annoying reciprocating charging handle that would hit your support hand. The SCAR L is expensive, very expensive, significantly more expensive than the M4 it was meant to replace. And despite extensive use of aluminum, it's heavier than the M4. That modularity everyone wanted? It added weight, it added complexity, it added cost. U.S. Special Operations Command kept the SCAR H in 7.62mm NATO, but they dropped the SCAR L from widespread service. The official reason? The SCAR L doesn't offer sufficient improvement over the M4 to justify substantially higher cost and weight. Modularity sounded perfect in PowerPoint presentations. In reality, soldiers didn't need to change barrels in the field. They needed a lighter rifle that cost less. All that modularity was solving problems that didn't actually exist in combat. The SCAR L remains in production. It's still in service with multiple countries. It's an excellent rifle, but its U.S. adoption was far more limited than expected. Turns out, modularity wasn't the answer either. Simpler was better, lighter was better, cheaper was better. After 12 rifles in 70 years, what actually matters? Number 12, 2024, the cycle never ended. Today, global. Look at what NATO militaries actually carry. United States, M4 carbines. Also introducing the 6.8mm XM7. Germany, transitioning to HK416. France, HK416F. Britain, upgraded L85A3, replacement planned for 2030. Italy, Beretta ARX 160. Switzerland, still using SG550. Poland, various configurations. Spain, still using G36. Smaller NATO members, M16, M4, or whatever they could afford. After 70 years of trying to achieve one alliance, one rifle, one cartridge, NATO members still carry different rifles, different configurations, different calibers. Modern rifles are objectively superior to anything from 1953. They're lighter, more reliable, more accurate, more modular. Soldiers have optics, lights, lasers, suppressors. Manufacturing quality is exceptional. Ammunition is better. Computer-aided design optimizes every dimension. By every technical metric, today's rifles are dramatically superior. But NATO still lacks standardization. The original 1950s problem, ammunition incompatibility, logistics nightmares, inability to share supplies, remains fundamentally unsolved. And it gets worse. The United States is adopting the 6.8mm XM7, a completely new, non-NATO standard caliber, more powerful than 5.56mm, which means we might be right back where we started in 1953, with America forcing a too powerful cartridge on NATO allies. Will the 6.8mm XM7 become another 7.62mm NATO disaster? Too powerful for controllable automatic fire? Will European NATO members refuse to adopt it, creating the exact ammunition incompatibility that NATO was founded to eliminate? History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And this rhyme sounds awfully familiar. After 12 rifles, 70 years, and billions of dollars spent, the cycle never ended. It just keeps accelerating.